All right, this week on AIS Podcast, we have Mike Hall. And Mike is the guru behind building out your company so it performs as optimal as possible. So we're going to be diving into a bunch of different topics here. First one being applied behavior analytics. We're going to talk about what that means, what it is, what it means for your business. And when I first met Mike, I had no clue what this even was. And then after he broke this down for me, it was like, oh my gosh, light bulb went off in how important this is for a business. So with that, Mike, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So applied behavior analytics. Now, that's somewhat of a mouthful of a term, and a lot of people might not know what that means. Give us kind of the breakdown on what that means and what you're really doing with this.
Well, we can go with the really official, pretty definition. Or my favorite analogy is for those folks in your audience that might have seen the movie Moneyball. We do Moneyball for companies. So
Okay.
how they brought introduced analytics into the sports arena with the Oakland A's, and we, by getting which players were best to be placed in which position and even which place in the batting order, we do that for people within corporate America. And if you follow that analogy along, that would make me Brad Pitt. So I just want to be clear.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So you're putting the right people in the right seat. You're really diving into the DNA side of people and like what they're inherently good at, or is this more like it says behavioral? Like, is this a environment type thing?
Applied behavioral analytics is relative to your psychological thumbprint or psychological hardwiring, relative to 7 work-related attributes. So what we do, it's what are you built for? Back to the sports analogies, and let maybe go with some football fans. The NFL scouting combine. This year, Caleb Williams is supposedly a generational quarterback, going to go number 1. You wouldn't draft that kid and put him at defensive end. The analytics show that he is a quarterback. We do the same thing the same way. But we use math and science to do that. It's comparable to the analogy I like to draw is if a PhD in psychology and a PhD in statistics got married and had a baby, this is what you get. And
Okay.
we use those types of analytics to understand both what you're best suited to do, and then how you are, to answer the second part of your question, how you are indeed adapting yourself behaviorally to meet the demands of your job. And if your adaptation is such that it's causing disengagement or stress, you're not therefore optimized in your position. Again, if you put a quarterback at defensive end, he's going to get stressed.
Yeah.
So we have measures and means and modalities, the math and the science, to say, wow, this person's out of position. And oh, by the way, here's a better position for them given what we know about a company.
Okay. So you're really a guru at right person, right seat, it seems like. Because you're going to be looking at, and I imagine this is happening in the hiring process as well, correct?
About 10% of what we do is on the hiring side. That's absolutely where you have to start. 90% is on an ongoing basis of consultation, and as people adapt to their scenarios, as they're promoted up the organization. But yeah, you definitely start with the hiring, and you start by defining the using the same types of analytics to define what a job requires. So it's not just, hey, let me look at your resume and see if you're the best pipe fitter that ever existed. It's, are you hardwired to do this really, really well? Because let's face it, we see a lot of resumes that I like to call resumes obituaries, because it's everything I ever did right, nothing I did wrong.
Yep.
And it's not a true measure. It's a measure of what you've done, but not who you are and how you're built to do what you do. So we're into that right person, right seat. We're looking to find out who. We start with the who, not the what.
Okay. All right. Which is a little bit against, I would say, traditional terms of building out an org chart, and then filling and hiring and going off of the resume and just kind of going through that interview process with them, which I like. Because I honestly feel like there's never the wrong person, but there's always the wrong seat.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I agree with you. There's somebody may not be suited for a company or a seat, but that doesn't mean that they're a bad person or don't have worth. It's where are they most fulfilled, first and foremost, and where will they provide the most value to an organization? So where do they receive the greatest amount of self-satisfaction, and where do they provide the most value? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I think that's the huge point there. When you did this for our companies, and we were able to see where there might be some misalignment, or someone might be a little bit disengaged, or someone's extremely stressed in their position, it wasn't necessarily like, wow, that person's like just a really bad person, and they don't try hard at all. And you know what? They should not be in this company. It was more so eye-opening to, wow, what do I need to do as the leader to adjust this, or how do I motivate them and lead them in a different direction or better, because they're not going to receive, it's not a blanket answer for each person, because we're all human here and we're all so different. So I loved that aspect of it as well, was kind of the catering for the leader to understand who are you talking to when you're talking to this person. That was important.
Yeah. And I think that hits upon an even greater attribute. Like I said, we spend about 10% of our time on the hiring side of matching right people to right position. But the real golden component of this is treating people the way they want to be treated. So here's a little statistic for you. There are 19 known profiles in the world, and they each represent about 5.25% of the population. And that's an even dispersion. And so there's that golden rule out there that says treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, do the math. If I do that, I have a 95% probability of mistreating that individual, because there's that probability, 95% probability, they're not like me. So if you understand the who, then you understand how to motivate, manage, lead, communicate, hire, recruit, train. Different people learn different ways. So you optimize learning. And so you start to do what we call the platinum rule, which is to treat others as they want to be treated. And when that happens, productivity goes up, retention goes up, turnover plummets. It's just an all-around win-win. So it's not only just getting the right person in the right seat, it is then appropriately managing, motivating, leading, and guiding that individual in the way that is most conducive to them to be productive. It is a very selfless form of leadership.
This sounds a lot like the EOS type mindset behind right person, right seat, gets it, wants it, capable of it. These type of little, I would say, tips and tricks and mythology behind building a business and leading it. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, this is 100% hand in glove with EOS. The thing about, if you don't use the analytics, though, let's back up to part of the conversation we were having a moment ago, is, for me, describe what you perceive to be a regular onboarding or hiring process. How do you find that person? And then what do you do once you find somebody? And what constitutes finding somebody you even want to talk to? Just walk me through that.
Well, the first step for us is we're putting out ads, whether that's on Indeed, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're running ads to a landing page that has all of the positions open. They apply. If they don't upload a resume on their application, automatically just see ya. We don't even look at it. The ones that do submit a resume, that person that's in charge of that department looks over it, and if it looks good, they have a phone interview. So first interview is on the phone. We talk through a little bit about their resume, a little bit about them, where they're at in life, why they're interested in the position, all that good stuff, generic stuff. And then they come in for a one-on-one with that same hiring person. They sit down, have a one-on-one interview, usually 30, 45 minutes long, and then we set up, if we like them, a panel interview with everyone that they would be working with, like the heads of the departments. They go through the panel interview, and if everyone there is unanimous on like this is a good culture fit, this is a good skill fit, we would enjoy this person, we move to either an offer letter or we go separate routes. So, and that's about 4 steps in our hiring process.
Sure.
And then we just base it off of that. So we kind of do a little bit of a consensus, but also skill set, because really the only information we have is what this stranger is telling us. So it's a little bit dart throw. I think hiring is one of the biggest things every company gets wrong. No matter if they're a Fortune 500 company or, a mom and pop brick and mortar, hiring a cashier, I think it's such a tough thing to do consistently well.
So with that process, esoteric, or hypothetical question is, have you ever made a wrong hire?
Yeah, 100%.
So would you agree that more often than not, at the end of the day, and that is a wonderful, very structured system. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to the final panel vote, you're going on your gut.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. The reality is, did we like them? Do we feel like they'll fit our culture? Do we believe they can do the job?
Yeah.
Well, what we do is we replace the gut with valid math. And what you may find, and what you do find in that process, is when you're screening is, first of all, you don't have to look at everybody that submits a resume. Because the first thing you're going to do is, I'm going to write what's called a behavior-based ad. Back again to, because I know the profile, we've spent a lot of time defining on the front end using statistics, math, and psychology and all those things, the applied behavioral analytics. We've used the tools to say, I know I'm looking for this particular profile. So instead of putting out a general job description, I'm going to put out a job ad that specifically speaks to the personality profile I'm looking for. Then the job description. So hopefully this guy, some person, male, female, is going to read this and say, wow, that just described me to a T. And yeah, the job title's there, but what you did is you just described me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an assessment that verifies that we do indeed have what we're looking for. And now you've got a tool that says, you're looking for personality or profile type A. And this person is, I'm making this up, is type F. And so they're literally a 22% match on attributes of somebody that you're looking for. So what we're going to do is you don't even need to look at that resume, because that person is not uniquely built, qualified to succeed or excel in the position you have, because you've defined what you need. So at that point, you go to the people that are, let's say, 80, 90% matches, and you look at just those resumes. Now you're targeting. You've got a sniper rifle. You're not shotgunning. And you're not going off your gut. You're going off, this person is the person I'm looking for. And then you have a reality check of, that the individual's profile is, it might not be someone that's the best interviewer. Because how many times is the person that makes the best interview is hired? That's because that person has real high social skills. What if you don't need somebody that has real high social skills? What if everybody needs to be professional and polite, in those things? But maybe they don't need to wow you with their social skills. They need to be an analytical individual. And so you can come prepared to these interviews realizing this person is not going to be this bubbly, effervescent person that I'm going to necessarily like, but boy, can they do the job. And now I can get the depth and breadth of what's required around the job requirement.
Yeah. What just popped in my head was a book by Ben Horowitz, The Hard Things About Hard Things. And he was talking about how his his tech startup, they're on like their third scare of bankruptcy, and they're having all these decisions to make, and it's really looking bleak. They have like maybe, I think it was 40 days or so of runway, and it was just nothing was promising. And they were going through a hiring process for an executive level. It was the CFO, and they were thinking of, who do we hire? Like, who are we going down? We need actually no, it was a director of sales. Yeah, it was a director of sales, because they were trying to pump revenue. And he finds this guy, and he's having all these interviews, and all of these guys, they're 6'3", and they're just the typical corporate-looking director of sales, charismatic, very, very, very just awesome on paper about what they do. And he ends up hiring this short, pudgy, they said, I think in the book, that he was as wide as he was tall, like just a total, like, out of character looking position and person for the position. But this guy was a killer. And no one liked him, and no one had to like him, because his results spoke for himself. And that reminds me of this, where you could be in an interview with someone, it could be a panel, and they could be saying all the right things and having just really great social skills. And you can get kind of bamboozled, where that's happened to us. We've been bamboozled many times.
Yeah, it's a very common thing. It's just that. And so with that guide on the front end is let's be candid. Nothing in life's 100% accurate, right?
No.
But, if you could bat 9 out of 10, what does that do for you?
Well, in a market with...
standards,
yeah, the standard's so low in hiring, right? Because no one knows. Like if there's a 10% increase in efficiency in the hiring process and accuracy of onboarding that person, that's life-changing for a lot of businesses.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I read an article. It's a little dated, but I think I shared this with you. It was Wall Street Journal, June last year. I think it was June 6th. I don't know why I remember the day, but it was in the Wall Street Journal, and it said how many people had quit their job, and if I understood it and remember it correctly, it was how many people had voluntarily left their position. And there was roughly 50 million people in the United States that did that. And so I Googled real quick how many people are employed on a full-time basis in the U.S. It was 133 million. So I'm like, 50 million people quit out of 133, and then the journal went on to say they gave the percentage that I applied to the 133 million. It turns out that it said 101 million people are either actively or passively looking for a new job.
Wow.
And then you read some Gallup surveys and assessments and why people leave. The number one reason people leave their job is their boss.
Yeah.
Number two is their coworkers. Money is fifth.
Wow.
So back to the analytics. Beyond just the hiring, it is the motivation, leading, managing, coaching, mentoring. Because people don't quit companies, people quit people.
That's huge.
And so if you can get the right person in the right seat to start with, you've already got a head start on everybody else. Now, if I know how to lead, manage, motivate, coach, and mentor that individual, guess what happens? My productivity goes up and my turnover goes down. And like you said, if you can just do that by 10%,
yeah,
it's pretty
and
amazing.
I would feel that's where probably, like for myself, the most difficult people to manage are probably the ones that aren't really cut for that position, because they don't have the DNA or skill set that to really fulfill it in a manner that I would like to see done. It's just, and it's not necessarily 100% their fault. It's actually my fault for putting them in that situation, for setting them up in a spot where they aren't really built to succeed. Because you can have all the training processes, you can have all the SOPs and have everything really clear deliverables on their role. But if that's not who they are and they're miserable in it, they are not going to perform as well as someone that's built for it. And
Correct.
That's just is what it is. And I think that's where most of the frustration comes, employee to boss and boss to employee, is because we want them to succeed. We want them to be good at their job. And if they just aren't equipped to do what the expectation is, it's just a recipe for conflict.
Well, yeah, and then you take that, and again, you compound it with, I really don't know what motivates that person. I don't know how to communicate with that person. I mean, it just exacerbates already bad situation.
Yeah.
So that's why the
100%.
entirety of the program is right person, right seat, appropriately led, managed, and motivated.
Yeah. Yeah,
Two
that's
problems.
huge. Yep, two separate problems that are fitting to one person, one role. So give me an example here, because I know you've worked with a lot of companies. Give me a turnaround story.
Okay.
Give me something where everyone was just kind of unaligned, maybe disengaged, and by implementing this, you turned that company around. Not necessarily the employee in the role, but that company.
Oh gosh, one that I think of, it was a pretty significant change. I don't want to say turning the company around, but pretty significant change. Had a company with a rather large sales force, and about half, and these were what we would traditionally classify as hunters. And there are two ways that people learn and process data and teach. One is deductive analytic and one is inductive intuitive experiential. Well, we have the ability to delineate which way you process. So what was happening is about half the sales force was failing, was underperforming, not meeting their numbers. And when we looked at it, we were like, everybody that is not doing well in their position, it's not that they're not good salespeople, it's they're misaligned with their boss. So of all the inductive individuals who needed inductive leadership, that were struggling were reporting to a deductive analytic person. Yet the deductive analytic sales guys under the deductive analytic leader were killing it. All we did was switch all the inductives under the inductives and the deductives under the deductives, and sales went up 20%. We played human.
Yeah, that's huge. That's insane, actually. I wonder how often that actually happens. That must be a common thing.
I was a client yesterday, and we were doing an analysis of a particular delivery department. And we had their entire org chart up. And I said, hey, just do me a favor. Rank everybody up here on a scale, subjective, 1 to 10, how you rank them as an employee, but you're not allowed to use 7. 7's a cop-out. That's an official statement by me. 7's a cop-out. You're either a 6 or an 8, no 7s. Everybody says 7. You just don't allow it. And they had a bunch of 8 9s, no 10s, just because it's hard to achieve perfection. A bunch of 8s and 9s, but they also had some 3s and 4s, and a 5 in there, maybe some 6s. And when we did that, the commonality of what this department required, all of the 8s and 9s were one profile. And they were deductive analytic profiles that thought in the present, that looked to the past, that were analytic, that were methodical and extremely detail-oriented, where the others that were performing poorly were none of those things. And it was just, bang, that quick. Here's your rock stars, and here's the people that are struggling. You want more of these rock stars? The short answer is yes. Well, now we write the behavior-based ads to attract those rock stars.
That's insane. And that'd be huge for any business looking for those insights on, I have this gut feeling behind these people are my rock stars, and why are these people underperforming? And it's wrong person in the right seat, right? Because there's obviously people that can do this job well. It's just the people that are underperforming just aren't the right type of person to perform well, which is great insight. And that kind of brings me to what you see in a team. So a lot of what our contractors are doing, we have field employees, we have a superintendent or on-site manager, we have a project manager, production manager, we have director of operation, and then we have sales and design, and all of these like people in their little hard silos, and they kind of work very, I would say, very vertical of each other. It's a waterfall effect from marketing going all the way down to production being at the basin here. How do we really hire to align teams better? Like what's the best components of a team? And I think of the book from Lencioni, The Six Working Geniuses, when he's kind of putting that team together, and he needs the galvanizer, but he also needs the wonderment, and he needs the person that has tenacity to get things across the finish line. How are you quantifying, when you're going through the hiring process, your clients' needs and outcomes from hiring?
Well, what you do is we build from the bottom up. Is the first thing you do is you define what a position requires, because I mean you are a product or service delivery company, so therefore you have to deliver on your promise. So you start with the individual position, and again we profile it using the analytics. Then what you do is you match the hired person to the position. You match that person to their boss. Like I talked about earlier when we were moving people around in the sales organization to increase sales, you match the individual to their boss, the boss to the vision, and the vision to the culture. And you can do that in those team silos because it all rolls up to culture.
Yeah.
And your vision and your strategy. Again, think EOS.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So
and I like the aspect of you're fitting that employee to their boss, because that is a nuanced relationship there. Like your direct manager, the person you directly report to, you have to get each other. Like you can't have polarization there in any way. They need to be aligned.
The best analogy I can think of that is how many people, maybe you have, somebody in your audience has, is you take your best salesperson, you promote them to sales leader, and they fail miserably.
We actually just talked about that, huh?
Yeah.
We were like, I would wait. I would hold off. And
we use the analytics. I can put real high probability, well over 90%, say, yeah, you really don't want to do that. This person's not built to lead. They are a hunter. Let Michael Jordan play basketball. He was not a good GM. Let Michael Jordan play. But here's like what you want to look for in a true sales leader. It's like, well, that's our second or third best salesperson. Okay, so they're killing it, right? Yeah. But I'm telling you, they're going to be your best leader. And we're able to make those statements very definitively. There are some of the, just a quick little test that you guys can, for those of you that have that scenario, if you ask a guy that's your top sales guy, your potential, you're thinking about putting him to sales leader, and he says, so how much more, how much you going to sell next quarter over this quarter? And the simple answer is more. What's your close rate? It's really good. High. Yeah. Those are not sales leaders. They're salespeople. They're leaders. Yeah. They're 100 that does very well. But the one that can say my close ratio is at 36%. My average sale life cycle is 18 months. And here's my next 3 quarters projection and my next 24 months projections. And you go, why are you doing that? Because that's a sales leader. They're planning their work and they're working their plan. They're deductive, analytic, oriented. And that's the guy you want running your sales team, not the one that goes and tells the board how you do it. Great. How much more are you going to sell? More. How much more? A lot.
A lot. Yeah. A bunch.
That doesn't mean they can't sell it, but they can't quantify that. That doesn't make them less. That makes them different. That makes them an extraordinary sales hunter potentially. But you need that other element if you want to move up into leadership.
Yeah.
Also, you got to have the ability to hold people accountable. And believe it or not, there are measures and metrics within the constructs that we can delineate those that are more capable of delegating and holding people accountable to what needs to be done. There are delimiters for that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And for some reason, what popped in my head is when KHB was started and all these businesses were, all these opportunities were happening and we were growing super quick. Like we went from 0 to 16 employees in 12 months and obviously wearing a lot of hats, right? To where some of them I'm not best suited for. And I'm thinking about like that boss to employee relationship. I'm also thinking about just the capacity of people and the inherent DNA, you know, that's going to be, I'm going to be set up to succeed in maybe this role and not so much in this. Like for me, for example, I'm not really a finance guy. I can do math, right? And I can look at numbers and they can tell a picture, but I'm not the one that is doing finance. But I do have an affiliation for sales and marketing, it seems like. So when you're working with leaders, especially in small business, where they might be wearing 3 or 4, you know, executive level hats where they're running these departments, how are you working with those individuals to make sure that they are, one, aligning themselves properly with their team, and 2, that they're doing the business justice? And I imagine sometimes that's just, you need to get out of this role and hire someone.
Yeah. One of the first things, and I think I did it with you too, one of the first things I ask anybody is, may I be candid?
Yeah.
And now, I'm not setting anything up for brutal honesty. Brutal honesty is nothing more than brutal. But my job is to speak truth to people in power. So I asked for specific permission to do that. I've never had anybody tell me no. At the point that you can say, you have to ask, what are your goals? Because you know what? For me to just pontificate or start being prescriptive on, well, you need to be in a different role, I better sure as hell know what your company goals are before I start pontificating you're the right or wrong person for a position. Because if they say, well, you know, I'm 3rd generation and we're making a bunch of money and I'm happy, I'm not really into growing, and as long as the money keeps coming in, I'm fine. They might be the best person in the world for that position to take what becomes mailbox money. Mm-hmm. But if they want to grow and they're not built for growth, and yes, there are definitive types of people that are built to grow businesses, you have to respectfully and candidly say, then you know what? We're going to need to get some people around you that are going to augment some of the skill sets that you might not have naturally, so you can attain your goals of growth and or stability. It is take it on the flip side. Somebody says, yeah, I'm fine with the organization. As long as we can continue to make the money and the profits that we are, I'm great with that. And may I be candid? If you want to do that, you're going to have to put some different people in some different positions than you currently have, because you don't have the infrastructure in place to even maintain an operation.
Yeah.
And so, those are again, I want to, want to be, redundant on this point. You have to understand what their goals are. It's not my place to tell them you should grow or you should do this. My job is to serve and to align with what they want to do, and then speak truth to them as to, well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to make some changes, and candidly, that might mean you don't need to be in the seat you're in. Make yourself chairman emeritus, come in twice a week, check your email, read the Wall Street Journal, and then go play golf.
Yeah.
And I've hacked off a few people saying that. I'm a visionary. I've grown this company. They're like, no, with all due respect, you inherited it. Those are tough conversations. It's like,
yeah.
no, you're the third generation, my friend. You didn't grow this company.
Yeah.
You didn't found this company. And
Honestly,
you're not
that's how I
growing
feel
it.
about those so much. Like, I've been in so many different groups where, like, the contracting company will be around. It's been around for 50 years, right? The owner's 28, and I'm like, and they're talking about all these things. I'm just like, dude, you weren't there. You know, like you did not get this to where it is. I don't know why it's not an issue for me, but it's almost like a pride issue. But it's like you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like it's cheapened a little bit in my eyes for some reason.
Yep.
It's awesome that their parents or grandparents left a legacy. That's super cool.
Yeah.
But you inherited being a shot caller. Like, awesome. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's call it what it is. It's Lucky Sperm Club. I mean,
Yeah, for real.
and that doesn't mean they're incapable or incompetent within a position, but sometimes by that second, third generation, they are. And if it's like, well, and then my cousin has to do this and my brother-in-law has to do this, I've walked away from prospective clients before because I've told them I couldn't help them because they weren't, there were too many, lack of a better term, sacred cows. Well, we can't move this person because of this.
Yeah.
And we can't do this because that's XYZ's aunt. And that's my sister-in-law. It's like, so this is truly a family situation and this is how you're going to run it. I can't help you because you're not going to put the right people in the right seats.
Yeah, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I'd walk. They have to be, I think it takes an element of courage to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I am or I'm not the guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know I'm not the guy to do a billion things. I'm a little older now, and I've learned a little more humility than I naturally have. I know I'm not qualified to do a lot of things, but I am uniquely qualified. I'm part of the 15% of the population in the world that is uniquely qualified to do what I do. Mm. So at this, I'm pretty good at it. But you want me to be an accountant? I was a CPA for 20 years. I sucked at it. It's horrible. I was the best CPA.
Hopefully no one listening that you did their taxes,
Yeah. Taxes. Didn't get taxes. No. And thankfully they have that they do have the infrastructure in place to make sure that mistakes are caught and things. Yeah. So a lot of people catching a lot of mistakes. So,
which is, I really feel most entrepreneurs, we're shooting from the hip. I still have a healthy amount of being naive and just ignorant. And there's a lot of bliss in that because I don't know necessarily until I know if I'm good at something or not, right? Like I just go. I just trample straight and we're going to figure it out. And a lot of people, I feel, and especially in our space and construction, they come from the trades. Like this isn't a historical business-minded type individual. This isn't like it's actually really new that a lot of these tradespeople and a lot of outside business with like private equity and franchisees and all these people are getting into the service industry that truly are business people and might have and I think they're set up for more success over the tradesperson because they have that experience. Whereas me, I'm from the field. I've never owned a business, right? I've never balanced a budget. I've never, analyzed the P&L and budgets in a balance sheet. All these things were new to me when we were starting this. It took a lot of education. And I feel like you don't really know where you're going to stand or what you're efficient at and good at until you know, right? Which is something that this brings value to. If we can get a head start on just who you are and what you're going to be good at in your business, why wouldn't you do that?
It's a great question. Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the ROI on this stuff is just off the charts. So, again, if you, I forgot who said it, some philosopher or somebody, but They said the human condition is such that if you know why, you can deal with any what. Well, by knowing who, you know why, therefore you can deal with the what. And that's kind of how I like to roll with it.
Makes sense. Well, Mike, we can roll up here, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight, your expertise. If people are looking to learn more about themselves, their business, how can they reach out to
you? You can reach out. My website is Mike, M-I-K-E-G is in Goofy Hall.com. So MikeGHall.com. I'm happy for anybody to do a complimentary just assessment of themselves. It's like, hey, here's what you look like. Here's your strengths. Here's some things that you might want to keep an eye on that, we're all double-sided coins. Yeah. So here's the other side of the coin. If an individual is the head of a company in a leadership position and wanted to do that and said, gosh, that's impressive, and could you do this for my team? Again, if it's an individual leadership position, I would be happy to, again, complimentary, do what's called a team diagnostic and do it for his team as well, his or her team as well.
That's awesome. So I appreciate that. That's a huge value.
Good.
Huge value. Well, thank you, Mike, and we'll be talking in the future, so I'll talk to you soon.